So we're continuing to build onto the responsive state. We just looked at how really Germany kind of struggled. They would go from realpolitik at the domestic level, and it destabilized more than it united as those shifting alliances. And then we shift from that to Weltpolitik, where Wilhelm II believed he can satisfy everyone, and ultimately that's going to create even more chaos, and that slips us right to towards World War One. And now we're going to look at the third French Republic. And the third French Republic, you almost feel bad for France. They just can't really get their act together. If we look at their timeline, you have 1789 revolution, followed by 1792, the creation of that first republic that really slipped into chaos, reign of terror. Then we get Napoleon. Then we get the Restoration. Then we get the Revolution of 1830 with the hope of Louis Philippe that he's almost immediately discredited into the Second French Republic, followed by the Second French Empire. It just appears that progress is a painful mechanism for them. And now it gets no better. So we're about to start the Third Republic. What we see here is in 1871, France had been humiliated. We know about the humiliation that included the Battle of Sedan and Napoleon III being captured, the Prussian occupation of Paris, and then followed by the crowning of the Kaiser, followed by losing Alsace-Lorraine. Humiliation after humiliation. Napoleon III is gone for good. I believe he's in England chilling out. There is, what are they going to do? It's almost as if they're starting from scratch. That Prussian occupation really threatens. Bismarck demands that they do universal suffrage for a national convention or a national assembly. And that National Assembly is going to be unique because as it was elected, Bismarck understood, once again, utilizing realpolitik, forcing them to use universal male suffrage to elect, because he knew the majority of France, especially outside of Paris, were conservative. And not shockingly, the monarchists are the ones who really dominate this. And it appears that we're about to have a reactionary moment. But at that moment, it's the Paris Commune. The radical Republicans and socialists in Paris, they said, heck no, we're going to transform. And the Paris Commune, this is where the Parisians claim and proclaim that Paris is an independent department. Their dream is all of the departments of France would become decentralized, and we'd have almost like this anarchist type of state where the localities, there is a utopian feel to that. We kind of see a Saint Simon feeling to a degree and this is this great romantic declaration of popular sovereignty, self-determination, and it has a feeling of socialism and maybe even a touch of communism. And again, there's a hope here, the utopian hope that France would become this radical republic, again, decentralized. In the end, the National Assembly, fearing what the Prussian army would do, they came in and destroyed it. They overreacted. Historians have debated over the age if the Paris Commune truly believed they could achieve it or if they were attempting to negotiate. I kind of find with the documents I've seen, it appears that they were trying to gain leverage, negotiate, make sure that we don't have another monarchy. But we'll never really know, obviously. But the one truth that we get out of here, the radical Republicans will never really trust and embrace this new republic, this new government. They're always going to be reminded that they overreacted against this. And here we see an illustration of what the Paris Commune looked like at the outcome. Paris is completely on fire and everything's destroyed. And this is when we formed the Third French Republic. By 1875, the National Assembly finally got finished and they created a constitution, and they're going to establish a republic. And it's weird. You might say, Wass, why did they declare a republic? Why were they not? Well, it's because the monarchists could never truly compromise on who the next king would be. Is it a Bourbon dynasty? Is it the Orleans dynasty? There were even some Bonapartists that were hoping that they. So now all of a sudden, it's the, the first time that we really see the right is divided. And that's going to be really important because we're going to form the new right really quickly soon after this. But this right is reactionary, it's divided, they're not sure. So, in hopes to end Prussian occupation, they declare the republic. It's a presidential model with a strong president. This is kind of what the compromise was. Rather than having a prime minister model like in England, they would have a independent president. During this time period, in the years after this, the moderate Republicans were able to legalize unions, expand the empire, and broaden the tax system so that they could provide modern education. So we see elements of progress. These moderate, really almost conservative Republicans, they're working within the system. But let's just not emphasize those radical Republicans, those far left. They want more. They're going to demand more and more and more. And there's a sense of stability, but that sense of stability is almost always being challenged. And it's all because of the new right. Before I move off this, I do want to identify the new right as we enter the 20th century. The new right will be the aristocracy, the remnants of the aristocracy, the monarchist, and the military and the religious. So really, it's primarily going to be military, monarchy, religion, and they're going to kind of forge together. They begin to realize they need to really rethink and define themselves by their similarities so they don't lose any ground to those evil radicals, and they're really going to form this. And what we'll find out is the new right in France, every time they seem like they get their act going, they discredit themselves. And there were several instances that predate this, but we're going to jump into the Dreyfus Affair. The Dreyfus Affair, it is a moment of rabid anti-Semitism that we're going to cover most likely tomorrow. Alfred Dreyfus was a Jewish military officer in France, a lesser officer, and he's going to be accused of giving secrets to the German, giving military secrets to Germany. But I want to point out that everything that they had were forgeries. You and I can look at the handwriting and go, yeah, that is not Alfred Dreyfus's. I will promise you, there is. It was almost as if they were looking for a scapegoat. They realized there were secrets going out, and they looked around and they said, who can we blame? We're going to blame the Jew. Here we see a magazine cover in which we see anti-Semitic tropes. We see traitor. They want to hang him. And the military is literally covering this up. They kind of have a feeling who it is, but they're like, hey, as long as we blame the Jew, because at this moment, according to social Darwinism, Jews could not become European citizens. They were innately different. Jews could not be French in that way. In this military cover-up, as long as we have someone to blame and marginalize, and he is convicted several times, regardless of the appeals, and this conservative anti-Semitism, it created the bias to blind the military, to blind the monarchists, to blind this new right from the actual reality. It wasn't Dreyfus, but as long as they blame Dreyfus, maybe they can regain that power. This is when that writer we've talked about, Emile Zola, rises up, and he represents the radical left, and he, realizing the evidence was all fake, he wrote a famous open letter. Remember, an open letter is a public letter that is typically printed in the newspapers. And these newspapers printed it in the front page. And it's famously called J'accuse, I accuse. And it is a blazing letter that criticized the new right, criticized the cover-up, criticized the military, and pointed out that Dreyfus was clearly innocent. Now let's not think the far left was supporting the Jewish community. They're utilizing this moment to discredit the right. So what we see now is this polarization, and this polarization between the two. We have this far right, far left, and there's actually like riots in the street. There are bar fights between these guys. These guys are so dogmatic. We have the leftists, we have the rightists. There's political violence. And he's actually imprisoned in what we call Devil's Island, which is off the coast of South Africa. He's out there. He has been humiliated. He's been like, hey, you're Jewish, you can't be a good guy. Well, ultimately, thankfully, by 1906, despite the military courts continuously saying he's guilty, in 1906 the government pardoned him, and kind of surprisingly for me at least, he returns as a military officer. I would have just taken retirement and moved off, but he was a loyal subject. But the Dreyfus affair did tons of damage, and we can't overstate the importance. The radical Republicans they gained power. They now, even though they don't like this new government, they don't like the Republic. Well, with the new right discredited, the Overton window shifts so far left that the radical Republicans really undergo this anti-clerical program. Anti-clericalism is just the idea of removing church from government. For us, it's a natural thought, right? For the United States, it's really been part of our DNA since the beginning of our republic. But here, the Catholic Church had such authority. They were paid for by the government. They were part of government officials, and radical Republicans wanted to purge that. Of course, the new right claims that they're atheists, they're soulless, they're godless, and we're going to continue to see this mass politic debate between them. But despite the new right being discredited, they eventually rebound and begin to preach conservative nationalism. This is a great image. This is a great image of that, because this is a French school. They're teaching a history lesson, and the black area that they're pointing to here is Alsace-Lorraine. They're blaming that their frustration, their lack of progress, they need to seek revenge. So in their schools, they're going to be teaching their men, their young boys, that Germany is the enemy. Germany is evil. Germany has stolen our greatness. And that becomes part of the paradigm. And as we're beginning to see that continue to bubble up, in 1911, there's working class riots. There's a sense of frustration. The idea of the age of progress has not really transformed the working class yet. They're frustrated. They want more rights. And clearly, in 1911, France, the Third Republic, is not a stable country. They are on the verge of another revolution, and yet they will go into World War I. And they actually are a key player in the initiation of the war. And this is all because the only thing that really held them together, even the liberals, would preach this revenge. Our greatness will be gotten when we destroy the Germans. So here we go. I just want to make sure we understand before we go anywhere else what we've done. We've looked at the development of the Third Republic. We see that it was a crisis at the beginning with the radical Republicans, with the Paris Commune. We know that they are out, that they're completely discredited. The new republic is a sham. The monarchists are really chaotic, kind of like what I was just with my PowerPoint. But in the end, the French Republic is unstable, polarized on the eve of World War I. I hope that makes sense to y'all.